There are certain people we're taught to trust. Doctors, teachers, police officers, the people who are supposed to protect us. But what if I told you that sometimes the ones meant to keep us safe are the ones we should fear the most? In 1982, in the quiet town of Silverwood, Arizona, the local sheriff, Patrick O'Grady, had it all: power, respect, authority. But behind closed doors, he was hiding a secret that only one person knew: his wife, Linda O'Grady. And on March 5th, 1982, she paid the ultimate price for knowing the truth. 5 gunshots, a pool of blood, and the sheriff? Gone. No trace, no explanation, no goodbyes. It was as if he had vanished into thin air. For 5 years, the FBI hunted him. For 5 years, he managed to stay ahead. Until, one day, his past caught up with him. But the real question isn't just how he got away with it for so long. It's this: how many more Patricks are out there right now, hiding behind the badge? This is the story of a murder, a fugitive, and a manhunt that shocked the nation. Welcome to the Evil Psyche, where we uncover the darkest corners of true crime. If you're ready for the chilling stories that will make your skin crawl, hit that like and subscribe button, because things are about to get sinister. To understand how we got here, we need to go back. Way back. Because killers don't just wake up one day and decide to become murderers. There are signs, patterns, warnings that, in hindsight, were always there. So let's start with Patrick himself. Who was he? And more importantly, when did he become dangerous? Patrick O'Grady was born in 1950 in a small town outside Dallas, Texas. He was the eldest of 3 boys, raised by a strict military father. Walter O'Grady wasn't just a disciplinarian. He was ruthless. No crying, no backtalk, no failure. If Patrick or his brothers made a mistake, their father made sure they never made it again. Sometimes that meant a belt. Sometimes that meant being locked in the garage for hours. But what stuck with Patrick the most? The lessons about power. His father had a saying: "You're either the one in charge, or you're the one getting crushed." Patrick took that to heart. As a kid, he was the one who set the rules on the playground. If he wanted the swing, you got off. If he wanted to win a game, he'd cheat, or make sure the other kid never played again. His childhood best friend, Jack Morris, would later say, even as kids, Patrick needed to be in control. If he lost a game of baseball, he wouldn't just be upset, he'd be furious. He'd stew over it for days, looking for a way to win next time. By the time he was a teenager, he had already learned an important skill: how to manipulate people. And when he turned 21, he found the perfect career where he could use that skill: law enforcement. Because what better way to control people than to become the law itself? Patrick thrived in the police force. By the time he was 30, he had already worked his way up to sheriff of Silverwood, Arizona. The town respected him. They saw a tough, no-nonsense lawman who kept crime low. What they didn't see was what happened behind closed doors. Because when Patrick O'Grady had power, he abused it. He intimidated suspects into false confessions. He threatened anyone who questioned him. And he made sure everyone in town feared him, just enough to never challenge his authority. One officer, who worked under him, later described him as the kind of guy who enjoyed making people squirm. He didn't just want to enforce the law, he wanted to be above it. And then, there was Linda, the one person who saw the real Patrick. And that made her dangerous. Linda never should have been a victim. She was smart, strong-willed, independent. But the thing about abusers like Patrick, they don't show their true colors right away. When Patrick and Linda met in 1975, he was charming. He knew exactly how to make her fall in love. He brought her flowers. He made her laugh. He told her she was the most beautiful woman he'd ever met. And when he proposed, She said yes without hesitation. Because at the time, she didn't know. She didn't know that Patrick wasn't in love with her. He was in love with owning her. At first, everything seemed normal, but after a year, the cracks started to show. Patrick started controlling everything. He told Linda how to dress, what to eat, who she could talk to. If she argued, he punished her. It started with verbal abuse, then shoving, then the bruises. She always had an excuse. I tripped. I ran into the door. But people weren't buying it. Her best friend, Karen Riley, later recalled a chilling conversation. Linda grabbed my arm one day and whispered, "If anything ever happens to me, it was Patrick." And then, one night in 1982, Linda decided she'd had enough. She was going to leave. And Patrick knew it. And on the night of March 5th, 1982, he made sure she never would. Linda had packed a bag. She had a plan. But Patrick, he wasn't going to let her go. At 11:45 p.m., neighbors heard 5 gunshots. At 12:02 a.m., a 911 call was made. By the time police arrived, Linda O'Grady was dead. And Patrick? Nowhere to be found. Just an empty house, a dead wife, and a sheriff who had vanished. This is just the beginning. March 6th, 1982. The town of Silverwood, Arizona woke up to 2 shocking truths. 1. Linda O'Grady was dead. Second Sheriff Patrick O'Grady was gone. The crime scene was clean. Almost too clean. There were no signs of forced entry. No missing valuables. No sign of a struggle. Just 5 gunshot wounds in Linda's chest, and a husband who had disappeared without a trace. Now, if this had been any other murder case, the first suspect would have been the husband. But Patrick wasn't just any husband. He was the sheriff, and that made this case way more complicated. Silverwood was a small town, a place where people left their doors unlocked and crime was almost unheard of, and the idea that their own sheriff could be a cold-blooded murderer, it was unthinkable. Some people even refused to believe it. Maybe it was a break-in. Maybe Linda had a secret lover and he killed her. Maybe Patrick was kidnapped. But as the hours ticked by, one thing became clear. This wasn't random. Patrick had planned this. And the proof? He had a 48-hour head start. You've probably heard it before. The first 48 hours are the most critical in a murder investigation. If you don't catch the suspect within those 2 days, chances are you won't catch them at all. And Patrick? He knew that. Remember, this wasn't just some guy on the run. This was a trained law enforcement officer. He knew exactly how police worked. He knew how to avoid leaving a paper trail, which roads had the least traffic cameras, how to fake an identity, and most importantly, he knew how long it would take for the police to even realize he was gone. By the time they issued a nationwide manhunt, Patrick was already 2 states away. Gone. Like a ghost. The FBI got involved within a week, because this wasn't just a murder case anymore. This was a sheriff who had killed his wife. A fugitive with law enforcement training. A man who knew how to disappear. And that made Patrick incredibly dangerous. The U.S. Marshals Service placed him on their most wanted list. And within days, his face was plastered all over the country. But Patrick, he had already thought ahead. For 5 years, Patrick managed to stay 1 step ahead of the law. How? Because he followed 3 golden rules of fugitives. 1. No digital footprints, no credit cards, no phone calls, no online activity. 2. Never stay in one place too long. He moved constantly. Never stayed in a motel for more than a few nights. Avoided big cities with heavy surveillance. 3. Become someone else. He had at least 5 fake identities. He worked low-paying, off-the-books jobs. He blended in, and it worked for years. There were several moments where the FBI almost caught him, but Patrick was always 1 step ahead. 2 years after the murder, in a small-town diner in Lubbock, Texas, A waitress swore she recognized Patrick. She said he looked different, thinner, with a graying beard. But his eyes. She'd seen those eyes on the news. She called the police. And by the time officers arrived, Patrick's seat was empty. His coffee was still warm. And the waitress? She found $100 left under the plate, like a thank you. A truck driver picked up a quiet man in Montana who claimed to be a drifter. The driver thought nothing of it, until his passenger started asking too many questions. Do cops check license plates at gas stations? How often do border patrols change shifts? That night, the driver turned on the news and froze. That quiet drifter? It was Patrick O'Grady. But by the time authorities searched the area, Patrick had already vanished. Again. For 5 years, Patrick had been untouchable. But in 1987, he made one mistake, and it cost him everything. Patrick had been living in Helena, Montana, under the name John Tanner. He had a quiet life, working as a mechanic, keeping his head down. But one night, he got too comfortable. He was at a local bar, drinking more than usual. And when a man bumped into him by accident, Patrick snapped. He shoved the guy, started yelling, and someone, a rookie cop, off duty, recognized his voice. The officer called it in, and by the time Patrick walked outside, FBI agents were waiting for him, guns drawn. Patrick tried to lie his way out of it. He claimed self-defense. He said Linda had attacked him first. But the forensic evidence, it told a different story. The bullet trajectory showed Linda was on the ground when she was shot. There were no defensive wounds on Patrick. And worst of all, Linda's packed suitcase was found near the door. She was leaving, and Patrick executed her for it. The jury took less than 4 hours to find him guilty. He was sentenced to life in prison, and to this day, he's never shown a single ounce of remorse. Patrick O'Grady was caught. But how many more like him are still out there? How many other killers are walking free, hiding behind a badge, a uniform, a trusted face? And the real question? Would you know if one was standing right next to you?